let me let this last one in. We thank you so much for joining us today on the 4th of September. My goodness, it's a new month already. The year has just flown by, but we thank every one of you for coming in and spending some time with us. Let me see. Marianne's going to be our speaker. Pat, would you like to do a quick introduction of her since you are friends with her, or do you want me to do it? Unmute, please. Okay, Pat cannot unmute, so I'm going to go ahead. Marianne is one of our members, and I see Julie saying she has an unstable network, and she's phenomenal on researching, and she did her papers on the children and the youth. I've got some things coming in. So with going further and quickly, I'm going to introduce to you our magnificent speaker, Marianne Davidson. And Marianne holds quite a few titles with other societies, but we welcome you, Marianne, as our September speaker, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Janice. So I've got a quick question on my screen. I have this meeting is being recorded. I have a choice, leave meeting or got it. Do I punch got it?
Got it.
Aha.
Those who decide not to stay during a recorded session, then they are just automatically removed.
Okay, well, the guy did it. I see you and I presume you see me.
Perfect. And Nico is here for 45 minutes. So we got him for 45 minutes, and Julie Barnes is a new grandmother, and she has an unstable network. So with no further ado, Marianne, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Janice Sue. I'm delighted to be here with everybody this afternoon. And let me give you a little bit of background. Several weeks ago, maybe a couple of weeks, I contacted Janice Sue and I said, you know, I have something you might be interested in reading. I did my dissertation on childhood on the Southern Plains frontier. Well, not much time elapsed when Janice Sue contacted me back and said, oh, would you like to be our speaker for September? And I said, oh, okay. I didn't necessarily have that in mind, but that's how it turned out. So anyway, I'm delighted to be with everybody this afternoon. And I'd like to do a little bit of show and tell first. This is what a completed dissertation looks like. And I got my PhD at Texas Tech. And so you can see it's a pretty hefty tome. So that's the dissertation. In the event anybody is interested, that dissertation is online if you're all that curious. And all you need to do is Google my last name. At that time, it was Marianne Norman Smallwood at that time, childhood on the Southern Plains frontier. So if you have a great desire to read the whole thing, it is accessible. Second thing I'd like to show you, sometime after I finished the dissertation, the Texas Tech Museum Association published the dissertation. This is a booklet called the Museum Journal. And what is kind of nifty about this museum journal is that the docents at Texas Tech in their museum, in what they call also the ranch headquarters out there, use this in docent training. So, you know, you're always pleased when there's some kind of practical use for your research. And oftentimes that is not the case. It just sits, dissertations tend to sit on shelves and gather dust. But I'm pleased that people are able to use this dissertation and enjoy the contents. The third thing I'd like to show you, this is a real family treasure. Some years back, my cousin and our aunt put together, this is a compilation of our grandmother's writings. So if you had someone or have someone in your past or your present for that matter, think about putting the information together in a booklet.
for your generation and future generations. This particular booklet goes all the way back to my, I guess it's great grandfather in Texas and Oklahoma. So I've always been pleased to have this that my cousin Wallace and our Aunt Lucille put together. It's really a great and interesting resource. Last month's program has proved to be a great segue into this month's program, because we started out, I believe it was Michigan last time, and then we progressed westward this time in this month to West Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and New Mexico. A lot of people ask me, well, how did you come upon this topic? And I have to tell you, it was sort of by accident. My major professor at Texas Tech was James V. Reese. His specialty and my specialty is 19th century US history. I had no idea what I wanted to write on. And so one day I'm in Dr. Reese's office. We're talking about a possible subject, and he proposed several different topics, and one of them actually interested me. So that was part one of it. It was cost effective. A lot of times folks, my contemporaries, would choose a subject, and then they'd have to, if they were in European history, it would be a year in Europe doing research. Well, all I had to do was use the resources of Texas Tech, and also at one point, I made a research trip to the University of Texas at Austin. The third thing that proved useful to me is that both primary and secondary sources were available at Tech. And the Southwest collection in particular was available to me, and also the Texas Tech Library for secondary sources, the Southwest collection primarily for primary sources. The dissertation itself is divided into 7 chapters. Chapter 1 is the introduction, of course, and it is an overview of what is and was available in terms of research. And I'd like to mention again the Southwest collection. It is a terrific compilation of papers, memoirs, and perhaps most useful to me, oral interviews. At the time I was doing research, the Southwest collection had a full-time professor in charge, and I believe 1 graduate student. Today, this shows you how much it has grown. There are 32 full-time employees working with the Southwest collection. Sadly, I don't know how it's been expanded in the intervening years. We're talking 1970s up to about 1975. And I can only imagine going from one room in what was the history building to no doubt multiple rooms and huge spaces for the employees and also for the information. Something that I need to mention next from the introduction of my paper is the Turner thesis. Frederick Jackson Turner was a historian in the late 19th century and early 20th century. He is best known for the significance of the frontier in American history. This was presented at the American Historical Association in 1893, and historians since that time have been arguing about the accuracy or inaccuracy of the Turner thesis. So what did the Turner thesis have to say? First of all, it proposed that the frontier produced a unique combination of characteristics in those who came in contact with it. Second, the environment modified social institutions. Third, it produced a peculiar and unusual and different kind of American democratic society. Next, frontier Americans were seen as more energetic, more pragmatic, more materialistic, and more individualistic. I would not necessarily agree that they were more materialistic, but certainly the others. These characteristics were seen or have been seen, according to Turner, in all successive frontiers, starting in New England and the Atlantic seaboard and moving westward. I'm a proponent of the Turner thesis. I think the environment did have a huge impact on those living in it. Some other sources, if you are interested in further research, Edmund Morgan wrote about the Puritan family. John Demos wrote about the Plymouth colony. John Alswang, Ethnic Studies in Chicago. Robert Ernst, Immigrants to New York. Oscar Handlin, Immigrants to Boston. Handlin is also the author of the book, The Uprooted, very interesting and readable book on the history of immigration. So that sort of gives you a background of where I was, where I started, and how I got to where I was eventually going. The dissertation itself contains 7 chapters. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through all 7 of them, but I have selected to talk to you just a little bit about the introduction and 3 additional chapters. These include the idea of work on the frontier, religion on the frontier, and what I call fun and frolic. No lack of any of those. One thing that I liked, particularly enjoyed about researching this dissertation was that there were a great many of fascinating quotes about these entities, about these sections that I chose to look at. So a lot of the talk today is going to be direct quotations. I'm going to let the people talk to you about their experiences. I had the opportunity actually to interview a great aunt. Her name was Avi Mae Norman Wilson. She was born in 1890, and I interviewed her in 1974. Her idea about, and this first section is about working, a child's working life on the frontier. Aunt Avi said, a hungry childhood was the best since it stimulated ambition. Children certainly followed the example and the activities of their parents, hard work in the house and on the farm. Here are some ideas and here are some quotes about childhood, the children working. James Mayfield, who was born in 1894, lived south of Merkel, Texas. His dad, he commented, was lucky because there were a lot of children in the family. So the family saved money because all the children worked as farmhands. Work on the farm superseded everything. In bad weather, they went to school, and good weather, they went out in the fields. Another young man, Joe Metter, had a sad, somewhat of a sad childhood. His father passed away, and Joe took on the responsibilities that his father obviously had. Here's a quote. My sisters, Susie and Lydia, and I and Doug planted 12 acres in cotton and 8 in feed. We made a pretty good crop. Then we had to haul it up to Abilene to sell it. I got a pretty good price of 9 cents a pound, end quote. Walter Posey of Floyd County had a bad year in 1893. At age 12, he did these activities that I'm going to tell you about alone, and it just sort of boggles my imagination. Walter went out and gathered buffalo bones. He spent an entire year hauling buffalo bones from his farm in Floyd County up to Amarillo to buy groceries. He lived off the land, shot rabbits for food, made his own sourdough bread. The round trip took 9 days, 4 traveling up to Amarillo, 5 returning home. And here's what Walter had to say about that. Well, that's the way we were raised in those days and thought nothing about it. Charlie Baldwin of Clarendon. His family, this was kind of interesting. This is somewhat out of the norm, but Charlie's family owned a farm and a store in town. Charlie remembered that he began his work life at age 6. Quote, I think Papa learned a lot from his father because he believed in hard work and no loafing. To pick up a newspaper in the store would usually bring a request to come to the office. Then Papa would pick out something for us to do. Stack pants, clean stock, or any number of things that we hadn't seen and didn't want to see, end quote. In conclusion, children could certainly imagine a life without schools, without churches, and even without towns, because this had been their experience. But they couldn't conceive of society or life itself without the home, the family, and work. So that sums up my section on the child's work life in these 1870 to 1910 years. My next subject is the Protestant religion. Isolation and sparse population sparked the rise of the circuit rider. I'm sure most of you or all of you have heard of circuit riders. Primarily, they tended to be Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterian, and Christian. And the circuit rider would literally ride from place to place, town to town, and offer religious services. One of the circuit rider's wives had this to say. She was talking in 1896-97. This is a quote. She was the wife of a Methodist circuit rider. Quote, I always went with him in the early days and I saw it all. I've brushed tarantulas off my baby's palate, helped clean grasshoppers from between the wagon spokes when they balled up, slept out when we had to fold newspapers over our chest to keep the cold from going in. Frontier families often held churches in their home and Sunday school for that matter. Over in New Mexico, there was a Mrs. Blake, and she held Sunday services for 7 pupils. Not everyone in Deming approved of Mrs. Blake's efforts. This is a quote. I came south to get rid of the churches and all that nonsense. She'll be starting an annex to Harvard next. And to me, that sort of shows you the influence that women had on the frontier. So the women were interested, obviously, in homes, schools, churches for the benefit of themselves and, of course, their children. These home churches included, of course, Bible reading, hymn singing, prayer, often accompanied, this was very interesting to me, by either an organ or a piano, brought west, no doubt at huge expense. Children often had their own Bibles. One mother to her son commented, quote, I give you this book as I know it is the most precious and useful book of books on earth, or has ever been on earth. It teaches you all you need to know of this life and a glimpse of your reward after living by it and all that is known of our God and Savior, Jesus Christ. The Presbyterians had a code of conduct for young people. Their code of conduct, quote, included no immorality like swearing, drinking, card playing, obscenity, nor visiting grocery stores. I never have been clear what the issue was with visiting grocery stores. Also, gaming houses and loitering in the village. Presbyterians further promised to make war on, quote, frontier devils like liquor, dancing, Sabbath breaking, and ignorance of Holy Writ. Religious sentiments found their way into a lot of different aspects of life. Here is something I'm pleased to tell you from my grandmother's autograph book. This autograph book was given to her by one of her teachers, and a quarter of the entries had a religious background. They were of a religious nature. Miss Puckett, her name was Isla Rebecca Puckett. This was when she was about 13 years of age. One writer wished her good health, wealth, and a long life. This was kind of sad, but a peaceful rest once her soul got to heaven. Another quoted a Bible verse. A third hoped that Miss Puckett's soul, quote, excuse me, was enrolled among the good people of this world who were going to heaven. Her teacher hoped that she would be as faithful to the duties of her life as to those of her student days. The former would bring her eternal happiness in the next world. We couldn't have a discussion of religion on the frontier without mentioning camp meetings. Of course, these camp meetings had both a serious and a social nature. Saving souls, bringing non-believers to the mourner's bench, all this very serious and something really uppermost in the people's minds. But there was also fun to be had. So this was the nature of the all-important camp meeting or revival. A little fun and a lot of religion. One 16-year-old girl was pleading with a non-believer. Here is a quote from this young lady. Hold, listen. There is a reality in religion. I feel it in my soul. God is here in converting power. You dare not take that woman from the mourner's bench. Christ died to save her, and she wants to be saved, and you won't let her. Further on in this, when I was doing this research, it did note that both the woman and the non-believer were saved. Research told me that it was not uncommon to have 75 or 80 conversions at these camp meetings. And no doubt there were possibly several hundred people at the camp meeting. On the social side, it was a chance for everybody to get together and to socialize. Children, teens, adults. One young lady liked a particular camp meeting so much because it gave her the chance to meet eligible beaux, B-E-A-U-X. And these boys, she mentioned at one particular camp meeting, she enjoyed it because it did have a lot of young gentlemen present, and she enjoyed it, quote, more than ever before. Girls were sometimes taken up by the emotion of the camp meeting. Quote, they battled down the devil by shaking their fists, stomping their feet, and unconsciously tearing open their bosoms and assuming indelicate attitudes. That must have been a real sight. The young boys, teenagers, no doubt, one teenage boy enterprisingly set up a lemonade stand. He wanted to make a little money at the camp meeting. And also, of course, it was an opportunity to meet girls. This young man said, quote, when Minnie and Madge Bourne began to spend more time than money at my lemonade stand one summer, I started to think of things besides profits. So certainly it was an opportunity to not only have a religious experience, but also a little bit of fun and the opportunity to meet friends, neighbors, and potential mates. Next, the particular chapter I want to talk about is fun and frolic. What did the young people do? There was a lot of isolation, there was a lot of hard work, but there was also time for fun. The boys did hunting, fishing, and swimming. The girls, of course, participated in indoor activities such as knitting, crocheting, canning, cooking, gardening. No swimming for the girls, though. I think the swimming suit had not been invented. I meant to look that up to see when the first swimming suits came into fashion, but at any rate, in this period on the frontier, swimming, that was not a thing for girls. All of these activities, with the possible exception of swimming, were things that were done for fun as children, but later would be useful in life. The emphasis was on being gentlemanly and ladylike. What other things did the kids do back in those days? There was reading, there was music, and there was dancing. Approved books, of course, included the Bible, A Tale of Two Cities, David Copperfield, Shakespeare. Unapproved books, Shadow of a Sin, Tempest and Sunshine, and The Hidden Hand. One young lady commented, "Everybody went to everything. Those were the most democratic people I had ever known. Such things as invitations were practically unknown. It was simply the general understanding that everybody was to join in whatever good times might be abroad." This was a young lady from New Mexico. Maggie Holden from Lubbock noted and commented on the great isolation that she faced. Quote, "Although a great many of my people were in Lubbock, I dreaded going back to the loneliness of the country, with nothing but endless reaches of land, nothing to break the monotony of vision except the crude, widely scattered dwellings of the settlers. Nothing to stop the view but the blending of sky and earth at the horizon. Nothing but the lowing of cattle and the screaming of coyotes to break the oppressive silence." I mentioned earlier that there was a great emphasis on being ladylike or gentlemanly. Here's a mother's admonition to her son. Mrs. C.F. Stubbs said, quote, "Preserve your tender respect for women intact. You will come out into the world from the wilds of Texas, a polished gentleman," end quote. Dances, to dance or not to dance. Clearly, many young people enjoyed this pastime. One young man commenting to a friend, "Just watch until you see the pious folk about to get, G-I-T, get. And then you ride off like the Dickens for a fiddler, while I walk around and tell the girls that we're going to have a dance. You bet we'll have a high old time yet," end quote. Courting, Gerald Reardon, quote, "Thus equipped with sin on my breath, hair sleeked back with bay rum, and kiss me chewing gum in my pocket, I drove forth to win and woo." So life on the frontier was certainly not all work and no play. There was fun, there was relaxation, and friends and family to share it with. In conclusion, let's go back to the beginning. What did Turner have to say about the frontier and its effect on men, women, boys, and girls who opened up the Southern Plains? Do you think that the people whose lives we looked at today fit into Frederick Jackson Turner's description? Thank you very much.
Are there any questions? Does anybody have a question or a comment?
I have a question, Mary Ann.
Yes.
I'm just I'm a visitor. This is my first time, but I was wondering, you said the children helped on the farm and on the plains and everything. How
Right.
early of an age did they start doing farm work? And
Well, according to my research, about age 6 or 7, often doing simple tasks. I don't know that I could have done it, but perhaps the little girls started to sew, embroider, crochet. You may have seen samplers that the little girls would do to practice their stitches. So again, I would say around 6 to 7, and the boys might be out in the fields, again, doing sort of simple tasks. Girls may be working in the garden to gather vegetables and so forth, but at a very young age.
Gosh.
Hard to imagine.
Mhm.
Anybody else with a question?
Yeah, Dr. Davidson, can you talk a little more about the circuit riders? I was unfamiliar with that. Mostly, were they sponsored by a particular church and kind of as emissaries out to the frontier, or did they just take it upon themselves to ride out there and spread the word?
Do their thing. I couldn't exactly tell you whether they had, most of them, as I may have said earlier, were Presbyterian or Baptist or Methodist or Christian. Whether they had the sponsorship of a church back east, I really couldn't say. I haven't done that much research into circuit riders. Whether they took up a collection at their various venues when they got to where they were going, possibly that sustained them. That is something certainly worth looking into.
Thank you.
I can comment on that. One of my clients has a great uncle that was a Methodist circuit rider, and there is a book written about him called, his name was William Stevenson, and he traveled all over Arkansas, Louisiana, and I want to say the Red River area of Texas. And his autobiography is written up in Methodist newspapers.
Did they comment on how he, got money?
He was part of the Methodist, whatever the group is for Methodist people.
Like outreach?
No, it was, part of the assembly.
Okay.
They were given a circuit,
Okay.
certain churches or certain towns to go to. And I don't know exactly how they got money, but he died and was in, I want to say Claiborne Parish, Louisiana, when he died. But there is a marker at one of the rest stops in Texas about him.
Okay.
So
Great.
his circuit was not small.
Okay. So it sounds like at least some of the support would be from one of the church institutions, that these things were assigned and you had a certain area that was your area and off you went.
Yeah, that is why it was called a circuit. They had certain
Yeah.
places to hit and travel to. And like I said, he was fairly well off. He ended up having, I think, 5 or 6 children, maybe more. And I even know some of their descendants. So, he was quite a character. And from his autobiography, we have information regarding the family. But that was before 1900 even. So
Yeah.
And as far as starting early, I have a picture of my dad when he was like 4 years old in overalls, standing next to his dad in overalls. So he was already
Doing something.
Something. He, and it's a cute picture, but it was early. He was an only child, but
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Okay, so what was that gentleman's name again?
William Stevenson.
Okay, thank you.
And he was a Methodist circuit rider.
Mary Ann,
I'm
Yes.
from Charleston, South Carolina. And as a young child, as soon as I could learn how to pick up a needle and thread, and that was at age 3, we
Wow.
started sewing and crocheting and knitting and embroidery and shelling peas. Having 5 children of my own, they all jumped in and helped can and all kinds of stuff way before 6 years of age. So I'm sure out in the prairie, as long as they had the dexterity,
Right, right.
they were asked to chip in.
Yeah, yeah. And like one of the fellows said, that was a money saver. You didn't have to deal with hired hands, and you could save a little bit of money that way.
You're right. We were a young military family. We couldn't afford a lot.
Yeah.
I'm the person that invited Cheryl Sims. She is a prospective member. She does have a farmer and somebody that had a vegetable vendor. So I'm sure she qualifies, but I did invite her today. Welcome, Cheryl.
Anybody else with a comment or question? These are all great questions. Much appreciated. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I apologize. Cheryl, we really welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us. And Cheryl, we would welcome you to join our society. We have Zooms every month or every other month, so always be here. And
Thank you.
does anyone have questions for Marianne? Davina, did you have questions? Amy does.
I don't have a question. I just have a comment of some interest. My grandmother, on her wedding day, they got on a train and went to New Mexico Indian Territory in 1908. And my mother was born down there in 1912. So it just resonates with me. That's all.
Yes. Wow. Life then compared to life now, we have it.
Oh, it was
quite a-
so hot.
This has been a fantastic. Linda Mizell. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
I love the reference to Sensen, and I'm sure a lot of the younger people have no idea what that is.
Sensen is a breath freshener. And if you're familiar with Music Man, Sensen is referenced in one of Harold Hill's songs.
My father thought that my mother didn't know that he still smoked because he had those always in his car. Yeah.
Oh, my heavens, my heavens.
And I've never heard of that.
I haven't ever heard of it.
It's
Never.
very licorice and I loved it, but,
Ugh.
and I'm sure mother knew that he was still smoking. So
I'm sure she did. We've got a few of our national officers. I do want to acknowledge them being here. Davina, would you like to give us your numbers, please? You're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
Turn there. Thank you. This is the seal that is going on member 1319. And this is the seal that is going on supplement 1411. So we're honoring lots of farmers. It's fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you, Davina. Thank you. Glenn, I'll come back to you. Nancy, do you have greetings or anything you'd like to say?
I'm just delighted that everyone is here. And it's great to see as many ambassadors. So I always speak for the ambassadors. And I'm glad you're here, but I'm delighted. And Marianne, I really enjoyed it. I understand that didn't both teachers and circuit riders often stay in the homes of somebody? So that way they had their room and board paid.
Right, that is correct.
Thank you. Nico, thank you for joining us. Nico is our youth.
Of course, it was a very entertaining and very educational lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nico.
Most welcome.
Bev? You're muted. Bev's muted.
Yes. Greetings from Nebraska and from the Counselor National. Thank you, Marianne. It was wonderful. And it brought back memories of my circuit riding minister ancestor that preached on the Indian reservation. So all of your topics were awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bev. Thank you both. Sue Fitzpatrick. Okay, she must be off for a
I
second.
was hoping you were not going to call on me with my voice.
Well, just for 1 second, you want to just say hello?
Yes, thank you all for coming. It was very interesting, and it will make me go read a little bit more about that period of time.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you. Or Jane.
OJ, yeah.
Hi, Janice Sue. I'm not going to show up on camera, but I want to thank you for the wonderful presentation, Marianne. I really enjoyed it. It reminded me of my picking cotton back when I was a little kid.
Thanks, OJ.
Sounds good, OJ. I'm going to get a few one of our ambassadors. Linda Mizell, you want to bring greetings?
Yes, I'll bring greetings from Missouri. And someone had mentioned teachers having a circuit, and my great grand uncle was employed by a settlement and taught all the children that lived in that particular settlement in the late 1800s.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you a trillion. Pat Thibodeau, do you want to bring greetings, ma'am?
Oh, it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Marianne.
It was, Marianne.
You're welcome.
Was fantastic. It was excellent, just marvelous. Let's see, who else do I have here? I've got so many of you. I'm going to pop over and I'm going to, David, I believe you sent me an email a week ago. Is that correct? Thank you so much. Are you there, David Boring?
I am indeed here. Yes, I did send you an email. Yes, I did.
Thank you. Would you like to bring greetings? And just so that you know, there were 39 of you who received an email, and David was the one who told us that we alerted our security department in regards to somebody that went fishing on us. And David, I appreciate you immensely. You are, thank you so much. But would you like to bring greetings to the society?
Well, I will bring greetings. I'll bring greetings from the great state of Michigan, although all my ancestors are Ohio farmers.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We love Ohio. Love Ohio. Amy Brown, Ambassador, would you like to bring greetings?
Yes, greetings from Kansas. Sorry about my eye. I had surgery on it. It was great presentation, and I'm so pleased to see so many people here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Deanna Wade. Cannot hear you, Deanna. I'm going to skip over Deanna and we'll pop back to you because we don't have any sound with you. Julie Barnes. Julie Barnes.
Hello, I'd like to bring greetings from Illinois, and my farmer, Patriot, was also a circuit rider. And down here, they were expected to have their tent revivals, and then whoever put them up in their homes and fed them. And it was an interesting read. I also want to announce that on September 2nd had his first baby girl, who we already have a number for, and her name is Hannah Marie. So as soon as we get that certificate, Janice, we'll have another little farmer.
Marvelous. Well, it's already been ordered. It was ordered. So we'll pick it up when we come back. So Glenn, give me just a moment. And then I'll let you do the toast, please. you will have the ability on Facebook to follow Davina and I. So tomorrow we're leaving, and those who didn't come on early, we're going from here to Oklahoma to Kansas. We'll be in Cherokee County, Columbus, Kansas, Weir City, Kansas, Miami, Kansas, Douglas, Kansas, Wichita, Kansas, Riley, Kansas. Then we're popping over and we will be at the Husker Harvest with Bev for a week, and we'll have a lot of fun. So it'll be Deanna and Bev and Davina and I at that event, and then we'll be there a week, and then we'll drive quickly over to Ohio, and we will be at the Ohio, Davina?
Farm Science Review.
Farm Science Review 2022. And there will be 4 of us that will be represented at that one. So with that, I hope you join us on some of the pop in and pop out Facebooks when we're going to be there. If you're in our neighborhood, please come and see us at either one of the events. And Nancy Gilfillan, I'm going to thank you and Linda Mizell and your group for being at Illinois Heritage Week. Very kind of you. Many of you take the time and represent our societies at different locations. Mary Glenn, I thank you again so much for representing us in Temple with all of those societies. And I know many of you others do so, and I just don't acknowledge you, but you are appreciated so much. And Helen Werner, I thank you so much for all the kudos and everything that you always give us. So with that, before we end, are there any additional questions? And I do have a hand up, Bill Ritchie. Yes, sir.
I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to share a little bit about the experience at the last SAR conference. I was multitasking. I wore my blue jacket to SAR events, ran to the room, put on my green jacket for the booth for the farmers. And so had a great time, met some, very nice people. And also, I guess since the last time I was on, I am now the first African-American state level president of the DC Sons of the American Revolution and the 132-year history of the organization. And of course, Janice Sue said it doesn't matter. You're still going to be doing farmer stuff. So what can I say?
And you do so well. And we thank you so much. And Bill also represented us at the Thomas Jefferson Memorial Celebration that's annually. So many of you members are the backbone of our society, and we appreciate you immensely. Kathy Kissinger, I did not miss you. I just cut you, getting back to you. Would you like to bring greetings, ma'am?
So greetings from Southern Indiana. Definitely enjoyed today's presentation as well as seeing everyone. Looking forward later this month to going to DCH. If there's anyone that's going to be there, would love to meet up and take a quick farmer's picture.
Oh, good, Kathy. Great idea. Perfect. And Cindy Stath with her hurt hand, let's do real quick.
My hand's okay. It's getting a little owie, but that's all right. I'm in Northern Indiana. Kathy and I are about as far away from each other as you can be and still be in the state of Indiana, but that's okay. I am pretty excited. I recently got a farmer certificate. I was reminded as during the speaker's presentation about, talking about farm kids doing chores or what have you. My great niece, who is 3, has her own chicken and egg business. And we've got a certificate I'm going to be giving to her in the near future for Lorelei's Egg Basket. She is, I think I figured out, the 6th generation farm kid. My dad put me on a tractor. He told somebody once, as soon as my feet would reach the pedals. And he had 5 daughters, and people used to tease him about not having any farm help. And I took great offense to that. And I would tell him I was much better farm help than the neighborhood boys because I wasn't off chasing girls. I have also reached out to our Purdue scholarship recipient. I'm going to be meeting with him a little later in the month when our schedules permit. And I have an educator award to present in the near future to the gentleman who was teaching ag when I was in high school and the FFA advisor, which back then, I'm not saying how long ago that was, but they didn't let girls take ag courses or be in the FFA. And I wanted one of those blue jackets in the worst way. So that's what I've been up to.
Thank you. And you represent us so well. Davina, can you
Oh,
see
yeah.
Davina's got Lorelai's photograph? I've been looking
Yes.
for it. Can you all see her? This
Oh,
is Lorelai.
That's my girl.
Yes.
And she will be going on the website. Isn't she a doll? With her chickens. Margaret Carr, you're.
Yeah, whoever the lady was talking about DCH, I will be there too.
So will I.
Great.
Okay.
So we've got two. And Mary Glenn, are you going?
Yes, and so is Helen Werner, and there's a whole bunch of us. So
Perfect. How about a farmer's photo?
Sue Moritz will be there. Barb Allison will be there. There's a whole bunch of us that are going to be there.
Sounds perfect. Great photo opportunity. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, everyone. I'm turning this meeting over to Glenn, and then we'll come back and do the final thank yous with you, Marianne.
Thank you, President National. Now I've got a few things. I will also bring greetings from Northern California to spare our official ambassador's voice. And I will bring greetings from and to all of our farmer veterans, as I'm the military ambassador, or one of the military ambassadors. I don't see Renee here today, so I'll take the reins on that. I also want to let Bill know that I'm being inducted next week into the SAR, finally. So I'm very, very excited about that. That's was kind of my end goal when I started genealogy. So it's really the culmination of a couple of years of learning how to do genealogy, gathering the materials, and it's really quite an honor to have an ancestor who fought. I have several, but you know, they're as those of you in the DAR know, I'm sure it's just as stringent, and you have to definitely convince them that your ancestor was there. So I'm really excited about that. So if we're ready for the toast,
I'd like to give a personal congratulations, Glenn. You have one down. You can come out, try to catch up with me because I have 17.
Oh, I've got like 8 or 9 that are pretty clear. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit. So all right, challenge accepted. So I beg your indulgence on the toast. I was generating it while Dr. Davidson was speaking because I didn't know exactly what the material is going to be. So on behalf of the officers and members of the National Society Descendants of American Farmers, I would like to thank Dr. Davidson for her informative and fascinating presentation. While we all know in a peripheral sense that life on the frontier was hectic, lively, and often difficult, hearing what these hardy Americans experienced in their own words shines new light on the details of their lives in work, worship, and play. Learning about topics such as this, which are frequently neglected due to their less than glamorous nature, are what make these NSDOAF Zoom lectures not just fun, but valuable educational opportunities. And it is wonderful to see how many members show up. It was 55 this time.
That's good.
To learn something new about the history of our nation. So once again, we express our sincere gratitude to Dr. Davidson for today's presentation. Let us raise our glasses as we wish her continued health and happiness. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you.
And Marianne, we have a certificate that will be coming to you when we return. And we appreciate you so much. Well, I'm going to end this. Davina and I have some packing to do, and I'm going to be photographing the car as we finish packing. She has it almost done. Somebody want to say something? Oh, Davina, you need to tell them how much you packed already.
3/4 packed. We still have just a little bit of room left.
Thank you, and we just have a small Lexus GX 570.
Her D2 is taking up half the car.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be leaving gallons, as you know, when we're leaving Cherokee, Columbus, I'll leave an empty gallon in the trash. Leaving Weir City, another gallon will go in the trash. Miami, another gallon. So I will just be kind of like a flight attendant with your underwear as you go. You just trash it as you go.
Well, safe travels. Look
Thank
forward
you.
to seeing you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Nice to
Happy
see
Happy
everybody.
Day. See y'all next month. Don't forget, next month is Honor Your American Farmer. So please come. It's an afternoon, evening event, and we will be honoring all American farmers. And so if you've given a certificate, invite that farmer to join us. We are thanking the farmers. October the 12th. Okay. Bye.
Write that down.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Hugs.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya. Thanks, Glenn.